incredible debate by Bernie Sanders. That was the real Bernie Sanders up there on stage. He was fighting for working people, taking on large corporations. That was incredible. No question about it. Bernie Sanders won that debate.
He won the debate. Progressive Policies won that debate. I mean, I think a lot of people were teeing up this weird conflict between Bernie and Warren, and watching the double-pronged defense of everything that's right and good in America was one of the most cathartic things I've ever seen in my life.
I would like to propose that any pundit who said they were going to go after each other this week is banned from TV for a week.
Yeah, by the way, this is Josh Orton, our policy director here at Bernie 2020.
Yeah, good introducing, because I was about to hit the stranger danger button.
We're feeling good. We're feeling good.
Really good here.
So I just kind of want to start off. One of my favorite things from tonight, and we want to hear from you. I mean, Bernie plugged, going to berniesanders.com at the end of his closing statement. Live.berniesanders.com. You're watching right now. We want to hear what you thought of tonight. I mean, there's a lot of big moments. There are a lot of one-liners, and that's what I want to go through.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite Bernie one-liner? Because we saw the Bernie that we know on stage tonight, where he's always delivering these hot one-lines. Who wants to go first with their favorite?
Josh, set up the big one.
Well, it was a moment. You couldn't really have written it. We've got a sticker on the website already. Bernie said, I wrote the damn bill.
Yeah.
He was questioned about what's in Medicare-for-All. They said the benefits aren't as good as he's promising, and Bernie Sanders said, no, I wrote the damn bill.
Yep. Catnip Nep says that's her favorite part. All caps, wrote the damn bill best part. Several people over here are saying they donated in part because of that one line. I strongly recommend it.
Yes.
But also remember that if you do in fact donate, we have a new sticker that our talented department dreamt up while the debate was finishing. So if you donate any amount, you get this bill. Can we throw it up on the screen there, Josh?
Can I play the clip?
Sure.
Because this is just an amazing moment. All right, let's roll the clip.
Second of all,
We'll come to you in a second,
I do know,
Congressman.
and I wrote the damn bill.
Oh.
So, fantastic.
We only get a clip of it, but go ahead. We got the sticker as well. Let's pull the sticker up here. I wrote the damn bill. If you go on twitter.com, you can find the link, or on Facebook. We posted it already. Just make any contribution, and you can get the sticker, I wrote the damn bill. So, Josh, break it down for us. What were we talking about here?
I think let's back it up, because I think from the beginning of the debate, the first question and the first big conversation was about Bernie's signature legislation and about the issue that's been driving the Democratic conversation for, frankly, the past couple months, and certainly drove the conversation tonight. Bernie has long been the proponent of a Medicare-for-All single-payer system that provides health care to all people of the country as a human right. And what we've seen since is we've seen people with cheap knockoffs, we've seen people attack it, we've seen people with watered-down industry-friendly versions. And so for once and for all, I think we saw really Bernie lay down the law here, right? If we are going to provide health care as a human right to everyone, regardless of your immigration status, regardless of where you grew up, regardless of your pre-existing conditions, if we are going to provide health care as a human right with no copays, no deductibles, and no premiums, there is no substitute than a Medicare-for-All program. And, going back and forth, getting into the little details of whether or not, people are going to have to pay this or that. I think what we've seen from other Democratic candidates, and I think especially what we've seen from some elements of the press, is an attempt to try and confuse people about what's in Medicare for All. Yeah. And I think the reason why this moment was so satisfying and such a big deal is because Bernie did such a great job in laying down, here is what is actually in this bill, here is what I believe, and if you're going to do anything else, then not everyone in America is going to have health insurance.
Yeah, another one of my favorite moments is when he called out Delaney specifically. When he tried to pull rank as, I am in the health insurance industry, I know how health insurance works better than anybody else. And
big mistake.
Bernie boldly pointed out that you, in fact, are on the wrong side of the health insurance industry, and you're exactly the kind of voice and messaging that we shouldn't be trusting. I mean, that's like good stuff right there.
Absolutely, and I think it also pointed out a really important fact, is that anybody who's been, most people who have been criticizing Medicare for All, Bernie's actual true bill, you see from so many corners the influence of the health insurance and the pharma industry money, in the pundits who are criticizing it, in the candidates who are concerned about losing health insurance industry donations, who don't want to annoy this whole industry, who are dominated by this industry. This is one of the most powerful corporate industries in the country, akin to the fossil fuel industry, and they are going to use every tactic in their power, their unlimited money, to try and lie about Medicare for All.
Well, it takes me to one of my other favorite moments of the debate, which was at the very end, where Pete Buttigieg questioned whether Bernie Sanders should be president. He made the argument that we should pass the torch, but what he said was we should judge people on their vision, not their age, and he's exactly right. And Bernie Sanders stood up next to him and he said, I challenge you to take the pledge. If you want to stand on vision, fine. Let's stand on vision. Do you believe that we shouldn't take money from the health insurance industry? Are you going to fight for Medicare for all? Are you going to fight for a $15 minimum wage? Are you going to fight the pharmaceutical industry, which is ripping off of the American people? And Bernie Sanders is the only person on that stage tonight who made that clear.
Yeah.
He won this debate.
He called Buttigieg out for the fact that, look, you can't be someone who hasn't taken the pledge, who somehow magically managed to raise $24 million in the last quarter, while polling at 4%, 0% with black voters, and expect people not to ask the question, well, who's actually supporting your campaign? Whose vision are you, in fact, advancing?
Yeah, you can't be fighting on behalf of both the insurance corporations and the people at the same time. And I think what this showed is it's instructive for how this debate is going to move forward and how this campaign is going to go forward. As this Democratic nomination process progresses, and as we look towards the candidate who is best equipped to defeat Donald Trump and run against Donald Trump, we need a candidate who is not going to come to half measures and have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the insurance industry. We need a candidate who will actually fight the insurance industry and take them on.
And there's a couple interesting points where Bernie pointed out kind of the hypocrisy that we were seeing, right? He said, you're going to see an ad from the healthcare industry. And what did we see? A damn ad from the healthcare industry right after he finishes that point. And, you know, Heather Hicks on Facebook, she has this comment here. Quote, I wrote the bill, it was good, but I liked it even more when he called out Jake Tapper for using a Republican talking point. Listen, we won this debate, so I'm not going to work the rest on this thing. However, I think it's really clear that throughout the night we were hearing these Republican talking points being thrown at the candidates from the people asking questions, but also other Democrats on stage echoing these Republican attack points. I think what you saw with Bernie tonight is he didn't even, no trouble at all.
He's already facing these attacks in a Democratic debate, and he's swatting them away. Yeah. Who do you want on stage versus Donald Trump? Bernie Sanders proved that he can take down Republican talking points on Medicare for All. He can take down the attacks and turn it around, and he can sell the people on this policy because it's what they want. It's right. And he can win on a stage against Donald Trump.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that it was actually a representative of Trump on stage. I think one of my least favorite was the Trump. I forget what it was actually about, but it was the equivalent of Trump walks and talks. You walk and talk. How will voters ever be able to discern a difference between the two of you? Not to mention the 15 minutes of trying to get Elizabeth Warren to commit to nuclear bombing human beings across the world. Why do we even need a Republican Party? If you're asking why people stay home and don't vote, we are asking why people are disaffected in this country, why we had low voter turnout in the last election. Maybe it's because we have this fantastic display of one party in this system where you can barely tell who is actually fighting for what side. Except tonight, they picked the wrong ones because this movement has been growing to a point at which there are clear factions that emerged on that stage. And there will come a time when, distinctions between those candidates will emerge as well. But when you have one group of people clearly saying, good things are possible. You only advocate for crappy things because you are literally in the pocket of big business. When there is a coalition of people who are making these arguments, it's much more difficult to marginalize one person or two people as kooky freaks.
So let's talk about the people who are behind this, right? Because I just saw another Facebook comment from Justin Peterson, I believe. Let's pull that one up. Yeah. Donated three times today. Our man killed it. Can't agree more with Justin here. And that's one of the points that Bernie got to at the end, right? His closing statement, which I thought was incredibly strong yet again. What really separates him from everyone else on this stage, right? You know, we heard a few folks agreeing with him on Medicare-for-All, a few folks coming around to the Green New Deal, stuff that Bernie's been leading on for a long time. But what was different this time around for Bernie, you know, he was able to make that case very clearly at the end. You need a mass movement of working people, and part of that is chipping in. Part of that is donating and volunteering. You know, Bernie plugged BernieSanders.com at the end of his remarks today. I mean, if you can go there, I talked to Tim right before we got on stage. The donations that we're already seeing is incredible. We need to keep that going. Get a sticker. Come on,
and
folks.
Let's connect the dots here, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about these health insurance industries that have unlimited amounts of money, the pharmaceutical industries that have unlimited amounts of money. Bernie asked other candidates to take a pledge not to take pharma and health insurance company money. To her credit, Elizabeth Warren has agreed to that pledge. But this is what we're up against, right? We're up against one of the largest industries in the country who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to protect their greed and deny people the health-saving care they deserve as humans. And we are up against that. Bernie Sanders is standing up against it, and we are only going to beat it with small dollar contributions, $5, $10. That's why this is so important.
All right, we've got a very special guest coming up. Live from Detroit is our speechwriter, David Sirota, with the take on how the debate went.
David, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Let's bring him in.
Do we have David Sirota?
There he is.
David?
David, look up.
David? Hello, David.
David? No fans of Schitt's Creek?
I'm going to speak for David Sirota and say that Bernie gets a 12.
A 12?
Yeah, a 12.
All right.
On a scale of 1 to 10,
Well,
he
while
gets a
we're
12.
waiting for that, I want to shout out Death Injection, who says, I got chills when he said I wrote the damn bill. Nobody can outburn the burn. My sticker is on the way. Darn snappy.
Yeah, get those stickers. We just released them during the debate. You know, I think an incredible move by our digital team to get that rolling almost immediately.
To be clear, we didn't have those ready to go. We don't have
that's not how we do.
foresight, shall we say, as certain other campaigns, because it wasn't a scripted moment. But we do have a little something for you, and hopefully some more going down the line. If we're still waiting for Sirota,
we got. I think we're ready with Sirota right now.
Do we have Sirota?
All right, Sirota, let's go to you in Detroit.
David?
So I'm sure everyone listened to the debate tonight
we
and
can't
saw
hear you, David.
what a really great performance by Bernie that happened. There was a lot of takeaways on this debate. Obviously, healthcare was a huge issue in the debate tonight. And I think the overarching thing that you heard in the healthcare debate and also across many of the issues, including climate change, infrastructure, and the like, was you heard Bernie articulate a message that said, essentially, yes, America really can do big things. We still can do big things. We can do the things that we have done in the past, that we look back on in history, and we take pride in from our history. I mean, today is literally the anniversary of the creation of Medicare. 54 years ago, Medicare was created today, July 30th. And what you heard Bernie articulate on that stage was that we still can do big things in this country. 54 years ago, as an example on healthcare, we extended single-payer, government-sponsored healthcare to millions of Americans. And you heard Bernie Sanders on that stage argue that we can now expand and extend that single-payer healthcare to all Americans. What you also heard on the stage from his opponents was an argument that, no, we can't. That was the argument from many of the folks on the stage, was in contrast to what Bernie was saying. They were saying, no, we actually can't do these big things that we have done in the past and that we need to do now. There was a lot of attacks you heard on Bernie Sanders' Medicare-for-All plan. Folks saying that we have to defend and protect the for-profit private insurance industry that is fleecing millions of Americans. You heard folks say that it's unrealistic to take on that industry. You heard folks say that somehow that providing guaranteed government health care to all Americans would be bad to replace the for-profit private insurance and industry that makes billions and billions of dollars off of a for-profit healthcare system. And in the details of the debate, you heard Bernie basically make the argument that, in fact, the current system really does not guarantee people health care. There are not only uninsured people, millions of uninsured people. There are underinsured people. And that oftentimes people lose their private health insurance because they switch jobs, because their employers change insurance providers, that in fact we do not have the stability, even for people who have health insurance, that there is not the stability that a Medicare-for-All system would guarantee. So I think one of the big takeaways here is, on one side of this primary debate, you have Bernie Sanders arguing that we can do big things, and on the other side, you have a Democratic establishment that is arguing that we can't do big things, we shouldn't do big things, that to do big things would be too much of a challenge to the establishment that continues to run Washington, and that unfortunately continues to control and run much of the Democratic Party. That's a huge contrast in this debate. I think the other thing that you saw in this debate was that the entire agenda is revolving around what Bernie Sanders has been advocating for his entire life. I mean, we saw this debate on climate change, on the Green New Deal. Bernie Sanders has been somebody who has been speaking out about climate change for decades. This is not an issue that he just came to. You saw a conversation about war and peace. Again, not an issue that Bernie Sanders has come late to. So the entire debate, the entire argument is revolving around the issues that Bernie Sanders has been putting forward. And that shows that really he is the leader, really the leader of the Democratic Party today.
Thanks, David. I think that was literally the calmest I've ever heard David Sirota talk about a Bernie Sanders debate.
Absolutely.
It's
okay.
the sin of a win.
So we've got Belen here, our Latino press secretary.
Hi.
Thanks, Belen. Belen, what did you think?
I mean, it was amazing. I do have some criticisms, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have some criticisms, and I think that I'm looking at things from a little bit more of a different perspective of things that, other people don't really talk about, right? First of all, Medicare for All, amazing. That is an issue that for sure impacts 1 in 5 Latinos in this country. And I think that's worth mentioning, right? We are the largest group that is uninsured. We need to hear from candidates that they believe that we should have health care too, because that is an issue that also impacts us. But it was incredibly disappointing to see that it took 45 minutes for them to talk about something that directly impacts people of color, which is immigration. The laws that we see that try to keep immigrants out, and the words that we've seen from the president himself always attack immigrants that come from countries where he thinks they're all brown, right? So that was incredibly disappointing. And hopefully in the next debate in Houston, maybe we'll see something sooner than 45 minutes.
There was this interesting moment, though, and I retweeted somebody else's tweet about it. I can't find it right now. But there was a back and forth about decriminalizing the border. And somewhere in there, again, one of these right-wing framed questions came out of the panel about, won't if America is even greater, if America is greater, we have to have all these benefits like Medicare for All, won't that incentivize more people to, cross the border? And Bernie Sanders got a little bit lost in the fray, but he says, when I say healthcare is for everyone, I mean healthcare is for everyone. And that's the real difference that you see between someone who understands healthcare as a human right and sees this as a moral issue, and people who are thinking first, foremost, and I think exclusively in political terms. And I was really heartened to hear that from our candidate.
Yeah. No, and I mean, another thing that's worthy of mentioning is, the words and the narratives that we're using to talk about the people that are affected with these issues. And Bernie didn't do this, but some of the other candidates, I feel like, spoke about people like they weren't really people.
What do you mean by that?
Just speaking about them as if, they're these outsiders. And it's weird because we're watching a Democratic debate, not a Republican debate.
Yeah.
Well,
So talking about criminality, and we're a nation of laws, and just because something's a law doesn't make it right, right? And we need to be on the right side of history,
and
not with what's popular, right?
I agree totally, and I think there's also this danger, as Bernie talks about, we need to defeat Donald Trump and his racism and his xenophobia and his misogyny. And I think there's a real danger because when Donald Trump says these racist, misogynistic, xenophobic things, it is not just sort of a one-off. it's not something that he says something racist and then it just goes away, right? When you have the leader of the free world making these kind of comments, it does durable harm to the fabric of our society and creates these terrible divisions and fault lines. And I think that it really ups the responsibility, and I think Bernie handled this quite well. It really ups our responsibility as people to be able to not reinforce those things, and also to not, as people in politics, to not sort of anticipate that some people might criticize us if we talk about immigrants as people, right? We need to actually not think of, we need to not think about the anticipated response from racists, and we should actually just speak our values.
Yeah, like as Marianne Williamson said, if you're going to act like Republicans, what's the point?
No,
But
exactly.
It comes back, right? Let's return to the basic point where this whole debate revolved around Bernie's ideas and Bernie's issues, right? We spent, I'm trying to imagine in 2016, if I had told you that there would be more than 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes of a Democratic debate devoted to Medicare-for-All.
That's right.
Would you have ever
Say
believed that I was telling you the truth? There's no way. And Bernie has changed the conversation in the Democratic Party. Completely changed it. And we are now debating whether Medicare-for-All is the right approach or not. We're not debating half measures. I mean, we have people on stage who are pushing that, but the whole frame of the conversation is around Bernie's ideas.
Yeah. And, among those ideas was the Green New Deal. Now, it took us a little while to get there, but the commentators, they knew they had to, right? They even prefaced it by saying, now we took a poll of what folks really wanted to hear this time around, and it was very clear, loud and clear, Green New Deal. So they asked the question, but look at this, one of the questions someone screen grabbed here on Twitter, that the way it was framed. They asked, are you concerned about Senator Sanders' plan to end new gas power sales by 2040, concerned on behalf of the auto industry? So even the question about the Green New Deal was framed in terms of like teeing up the right-wing response, which is going to be accepting the presumption that it was going to be an industry killer, completely ignoring the fact that the whole premise of a Green New Deal is that it is a Green New Jobs program as well. Did anybody else pick up on the framing of that one?
Well, and also like the notion that we have to talk about a Green New Deal because somebody stuck their finger in the air and found out that people wanted to be talking about it. How about we have to talk about a Green New Deal because we have less than 12 years to take action before irreparable damage is done to our climate and our world.
Exactly.
And I think that this comes back to something, Josh, you said about Bernie's ideas. Not only did Bernie command the debate stage, but his ideas led and forced the conversation among all the candidates. And if I were to make a prediction, if I were a betting man, I would predict, now don't hold me to this, but I would predict that they're also going to dominate the debate tomorrow.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, wasn't Bernie trending during the debate he wasn't on last time around?
He was. And I think, at the end of the day, all of this is because of the movement that was created in 2016 that was built up and all of the millions of people who have gotten involved in the political process. And we need to continue that. We need to continue to build on this debate. Bernie Sanders had incredible momentum coming into tonight, and we're going to carry it through. But that means we need you to be a part of it. Make a contribution right now at live.berniesanders.com. If you can't contribute, volunteer, sign up. Go to berniesanders.com, sign up to join, make some phone calls, knock on some doors, anything that you can do to be a part of this movement and to continue to build the momentum around ideas like Medicare-for-All, around a $15 minimum wage, around immigration reform. We need you to be a part of it because that's how this has happened. It's because of all of you.
Can we take this question from Sandra Bossert on Facebook, it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sandra said, great job tonight, Bernie. Remind union folks with great health benefits like myself that we are only one union negotiation away from losing it all.
I think that's a really good point because this is something that came up again and again. This idea that because of our crazy healthcare system, people have to negotiating through their unions is the only way people have semi-adequate insurance today. That is good in and of itself as opposed to a consequence of a system that could be better, and that somehow unions wouldn't have other good things to do and be occupied by. Apparently, Bhaskar Sankara, who's the founding editor of Jacobin Magazine, he tweeted out what Bernie Sanders is talking about in the spin room right now. And he says, Bernie talking to Anderson Cooper after the debate. When you give union workers Medicare for all, you give them leverage to negotiate for wages and conditions beyond just health benefits. It's common sense.
Yeah. Well, let me add to that. Sarah Nelson, who is one of the leading one of the leaders of the largest unions in the country, tweeted out tonight, "Every single time we go to the table, the company comes with proposals to shift healthcare costs to workers or degrade coverage. It's a win when we keep what we have. Bernie Sanders knows we have to ensure healthcare is reformed to provide healthcare for all. Otherwise, we're all lost."
And I think this raises another interesting point that Bernie made about how much of a pathological liar that Trump is. We saw in the 2016 election when Trump traveled to Wisconsin, when he went to Michigan, when he went to states like Pennsylvania, he lied and said that he was going to provide health care for everyone. He lied and said that he was going to oppose the type of trade agreements that had decimated those middle-class communities. He lied and said that he would bring jobs back to these communities. He lied and said that no factories would shut down during his administration. Yes. All of those things have been proven to be false. He even lied when he said that he was going to label China a currency manipulator. Yeah. He could still do that. He has still not done that. It is still a lie. And so when you talk about ways that Bernie Sanders is driving the conversation, it's not just about the individual issues. It's about calling out Trump for the liar he is and actually not just saying but showing how Bernie Sanders is the one that will actually take on these interests and who will stand up for workers, who will bring back jobs, who will actually do the things that Donald Trump pretended to do and lied about saying that he would do, but never, ever did.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about canceling student debt? Now, we all know this is a little bit of a hobby horse of mine, but I want to bring it up.
Do you agree with it?
You might have heard me advocate for it a little bit in the past. Yes. But, the reason I want to bring it up again is because here we had, Mayor Pete positioning himself as the millennial mayor who's so in touch with what's going on with young people. I think we're all more or less millennials in this panel. There's a range from top to bottom.
Technically.
Millennials.
Don't point it
that
out.
are happening
just
here.
go with it.
You're the younger millennial. You should be like, you're like the winner. You're winning in this little comparison.
We're
here.
all winning. We're all friends.
Well, we're all losing to the extent that a lot of us, me at least, so just speak for myself, have a lot of student debt. So to have Pete Buttigieg stand there and some others as well on the stage and pretend that this is an issue. I think Klobuchar is one of these. That a plan to cancel student debt is somehow a giveaway to the wealthy when we know the statistics are quite to the contrary. Now I can rattle some off, but people have heard me say this before. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. But there's some great ones, like the fact that if we had canceled student debt in 2016, when Bernie ran the last time, we would have closed the racial wealth gap from 12 to 1, which it is today, to 5 to 1 among young families. That the average gap between whites and blacks who graduate from college is $7,000, and it grows to something like $25,000 within 12 years of graduation. Like, the idea that this is a giveaway to the very rich is akin to saying, oh, let's not have public libraries, let's not have public schools because rich kids could send their kids there for free, which is what some of these people, frankly, in the back of their minds are heading to. And while you have these slow creep on things like Social Security, et cetera, but that's a subject for another day. I mean, what do you make of this, Josh? You're the policy guy. You helped to draft some of this stuff. What do you hear when you hear people attacking universal programs in this way?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think when Bernie teamed up with Representative Omar to introduce this bill and Representative Jayapal to introduce College for All, including the cancellation of all student debt, I think there were a couple things in mind. I think, one, it's clear that the system has gotten so dysfunctional and driven people so far into desperate levels of debt that we had to hit the reset button.
Right.
There was no way to sort of nibble around the edges on student debt.
Right.
Too many people were living in poverty. Too many people were trapped in this cycle of debt forever. We found out that there were senior citizens who's been holding on to student loans for so long that they were now being deducted from their Social Security checks.
Yeah.
That is immoral and absurd. The second thing is, I think when the point you make about universal programs is absolutely right, is that anytime there is a big universal program in the United States, we get into trouble when we start deciding who it's for and who it's not. And that was true with Medicare, that was true with Social Security, and I think that's true with student debt too, in part for the point that you don't see a lot of billionaires' kids taking out student loans in the first place, right? And I think the third thing is you have to think about the advantages of taking of the doors that will open for certain types of people who go to undergrad and who go to college and go to grad school and want to be able to serve their communities. For example, you look at someone who graduated, let's say, from an HBCU medical school, right? They may be making a deserved doctor's salary. They may have a significant chunk of debt. And you might say, well, eventually they're going to be able to pay it off because they have a good job as a doctor now. What you're not thinking of is what kind of medicine that person could be practicing and in what community if they had the flexibility to not have to pay off that debt.
Exactly. I mean, we're both lawyers, Josh. I don't know how long. Did you ever practice in private practice?
Not really, no.
See, God bless you. I was stuck there for 7 years doing far from the Lord's work, largely because I couldn't get out from under the student debt burden. And frankly, I know a lot of people like that. There's this false framing that says people who went to these schools earn high salaries, so they shouldn't have their debt canceled, without realizing that so many people are stuck doing jobs that aren't beneficial to society and that they hate and find to be miserable because they have to pay off their student debt.
And of course, the irony is they're forced to take jobs serving rich people,
people.
And defending the causes of corporations in order to pay off their debt.
And we heard that talking point again tonight. Someone threw out there that, I don't want to cancel the debt of some rich kid.
Yeah.
They're rich. They don't have the debt.
You don't get to be rich by paying 8% interest rates for fun.
I'm going to guess that Donald Trump's kids did not take out student loans. They did not take out grad loans. They were never paying 6.8%. I'm guessing.
6.8. I give a left arm for 6.8%. Now I want to shout out Rob Caballero.
Only the left one.
Says, bro, Simon and Garfunkel on vinyl. Why is this being filmed in my mom's basement? It's because they gave us keys. I want to shout
I think it's charming.
First of all, Bookends is a great album.
We're on a budget. Real grassroots here, okay?
Right.
What do you want us to be in, a big fancy office?
Right.
Yeah, we don't take the pharma money. If we took the pharma money, we could be in a nicer studio.
Ex Mata says rich kids don't go to public schools. They go to private schools like Ivy League universities, LMAO. True, but also Ivy League schools are often the cheap free ones, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But all universities should be free. We'll start with public colleges and university. Let's remind everybody this isn't just like a restart, right? We're not just canceling debt. We're saying public college and universities are tuition free, and we're also capping interest rates on other loans so that you aren't going to run up these high totals and like the gap that I described growing between the black and white communities once you graduate. You're not going to see the same discrepancies because you're not going to see your ability to accumulate $18,000 of interest in 1 year as some of us experience.
Yeah. So we've hit on a lot of policies, right? We've gone deep.
Yes, we have, Bill.
Yeah. I think so. I took a little break. I had enough. I came back. I'm ready. I'm re-energized. I watched more Bernie clips from the debate. I'm ready to go. There's one from Danny Den, this comment that I want to bring up because it just, to me, like, corporate hacks getting wrecked all over tonight. There's something that really Danny Den just encompasses here where when you had Bernie Sanders on stage, he was taking it to the oligarchs that run our country, and whether it was talking about the Green New Deal, whether it was talking about canceling student loan debt, whether it was talking about Medicare-for-All, which I feel like we spent the first, hour of the debate on, right? We were talking about Bernie's agenda tonight. And what we saw was the real Bernie that we know and love, and he was able to really take it to them. And that's why we got those big moments, right? That's why we got, I wrote the damn bill. That's why we got you worked in the healthcare industry and you made money off of it, right? He was taking it to them and no apologies. And yeah, CNN did run some healthcare ads afterwards. But you want to know something? Bernie Sanders was one of the only people on that stage who's not taking healthcare executives' money.
That's right.
And that's a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. If any of you guys are watching the coverage right now, obviously we're not. Tell us what's going on. Drop us a note in one of these channels and see if there's anything we need to keep an eye out for and respond to. If you see any good tweets, any good commentary, let us know about that too.
Any good tweets?
I'm like on withdrawal, be sitting here and not being able to follow up on my Twitter landscape.
Go, tweet.
Are we actually checking your Twitter right now?
Sorry. I told you to do it.
So Bill sort of told us no working the refs, but I'm going to take this moment because he's on the other side of the table to just work the refs very briefly. Which is to say that we heard, and I think it's true, and I think Bernie called this out. And he called out Jake Tapper for using Republican talking points in asking about, I don't remember whether it was about Medicare-for-All or whether it was about one of the subsequent issues. But I think that this goes back to the earlier point about the power of these corporations, right? They are running their own polls. They are funding think tanks that run polls to question the popularity of Medicare for All. They are They are funding studies and think tanks that pay pundits who are quoted to attack Medicare for All. Their money is everywhere. And one of the most important, I think, qualifications in a Democratic nominee is their ability to not fall for that. Yes. Their ability to sort of see through whatever the talking point is, and I think the sort of the raise taxes on the middle class question brought that to mind, right? And even I would say even the questions on foreign policy were framed in a bit of a Republican blob foreign policy type of way.
Why won't you nuke people first, Elizabeth Warren?
Right. I mean, it goes to why we are a people-funded and driven campaign, right? It goes back to what we're trying to do tonight. You know, if you want, I wrote the damn bill. We have that sticker up. It's ready to go. If you're watching it live.berniesanders.com, you can donate right now. That type of movement is what Bernie was talking about in his closing statement, and it's what goes back to every single one of those topics. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we could go into right now about this, but what, you know, the question that Bernie was responding to was basically Jake Tapper saying, well, you know, these progressive policies, don't you think it'll make it easier for a Republican to win? I mean, like, that's not just a Republican talking point. That's the, like,
well, I guess we should give up.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
I will say this, and you see this throughout the sort of political economy of these establishment pundits, these establishment candidates, these establishment folks saying, if you go too left, then you're going to lose. As if, you know, but look, we see the polls of Bernie beating Trump in Wisconsin and Michigan. And Bill, you know, you and I are both from Wisconsin. Yeah. We've been involved in Wisconsin politics before. Yes. You know, we know why Donald Trump wound up winning Wisconsin in 2016. And we know why his lies in the industrial Midwest carried him to voters who would normally never vote for a Republican. Yeah. And the only message, I think that you would agree, would to defeat Donald Trump's message, in some ways Donald Trump actually appropriated the progressive message on trade.
On trade, especially in Wisconsin, Bernie was the first candidate to actually bring up trade tonight in Michigan, which blows my mind. Yeah. I mean, we were in Detroit, a city destroyed by NAFTA. Yep. I mean, hollowed out, and I mean that just empty houses. Bernie mentioned it himself. Tammy Baldwin actually wrote a piece today talking about how to win in states like Wisconsin and Michigan. And one of the points that she made was being unabashedly for those workers. That's right. And Trump was unabashed in courting them. That's right. He went there and said, no TPP. We heard a candidate tonight saying that he was for TPP. What year is this?
Yeah.
It was
unbelievable.
Wild. And like you were saying, getting to a place where you show that you are for workers, where you're with people and people are with you by donating to your campaign, and those are who's driving you and not healthcare executives. Yes. You know, that shows a certain kind of dignity and a certain kind of authenticity that you can't get with manufactured sound bites.
Right. And even going back to not just on trade policy, let's go back to remember when Bernie participated in the Fox News town hall in Lordstown. Right, and we're not just talking about trade policies. It's clear that there's an appetite for progressive policies that actually address the everyday issues people are facing. People are sick of their outrageous premiums. People are sick of not being able to afford their health care, about choosing between feeding their family a meal and going to the doctor. And so when you saw that audience at the Fox News town hall in Lordstown, when the Fox News host asked, how many of you would be willing to switch to a government-run program like Medicare-for-All, like Bernie's proposing, the crowd went wild. That was not in the Bay Area. That was in Lordstown. And I think that should deliver a wake-up call to some of these establishment pundits and candidates who don't think that these programs are popular.
So, Belinda, you and I at this table, you know, we're talking about workers, a key part of Bernie's base. But you and I are the only people at this table who are a part of one of the biggest, you know, slices of Bernie's base, voters between the ages of 19 and 29.
Shots fired.
So, I mean, you watched tonight. I actually, you know, sure, the Bachelorette finale was on, but, you know, that's what DVR is for, if you ask me. What do you think?
So split screens for.
Yeah, or split. Yeah, that's fair. What do you think you saw tonight that really resonates with folks like us who are young and, you know?
Well, you know,
cool. We're young and
we're young and cool.
One of us.
Cool.
Yeah. Somewhat
One of
cool.
us.
I'm sorry, who here's cool?
Yeah, not I. I'm leaving again.
Well, I think one of the things that I noticed as a young person was the stark differences between those who will unapologetically stand with us and those who won't. I think that Bernie made it very clear that he will not be talked down to by lies, basically. And who's fueled those lies is Trump. And we've seen him attack basically every single person, whether that's a friend, a family member, a neighbor. Everyone has been a victim of his wrath. And we can't have someone who is in the middle, right? Like Bernie says, no middle ground. Like we have to go full force or else people will die.
Yes.
People.
It's that serious.
Yeah, it's that serious.
Yeah.
And I think our generation is starting to see that and know that we can't go easy on these people.
That's right.
Or else they're gonna not go easy on us, right?
I mean, we have to speak a little loudly for these two, I think. But when we were growing up, we came of age during the recession. We've been saddled with
You didn't come of age during the recession. We
Uh-huh.
came of age during the recession. I literally graduated from college the year before the recession. You guys were sitting in your Pampers somewhere asking about when SpongeBob is gonna come on the television.
First of all, SpongeBob's a classic.
Okay, we're getting
So,
personal here.
And this is, Belinda, this is exactly what I'm talking about, where some people
we still
just
here.
don't get it.
Okay,
Yeah. So I actually, while we're still going here, Judy Woodruff just tweeted out something that I think is a pretty important part of what we are trying to do here. She tweeted, Bernie Sanders says he has broken a record by having over 2 million contributions. An average donation is $19. I mean, that's when you hear people tonight, right? Someone on stage tonight raised $24 million in a recent quarter. Well, you want to know something? They took money. Pete took money from healthcare executives. And Bernie went right to him.
And it
he
was
was standing
a lot
right.
more than $19.
Yeah, and it was a lot more than 19 each. And Bernie was standing right next to him and said, you know what, generational change, whatever you want to talk about, let's talk about vision. And when we talk about vision, let's talk about backing that up. Will you take the pledge, Bernie Sanders, no pharma and insurance exec pledge, and not take their money? And you want to know something? He didn't take that pledge.
I think it would actually be kind of a cool thing as we're sort of starting to wrap up here. The $19 thing I think is quite amazing, right? Last campaign in 2016, it was $27, right?
Yes.
I think it would send an amazing message tonight if after that resounding debate victory on this night, that we sort of band together, and I think $19 would be an amazing signal if people decided to give an amount today, to go to, live at BernieSanders.com and contribute. I think $19 would actually send a very strong message to the candidates who are taking pharmaceutical money, to the pharmaceutical corporations themselves, and to the establishment who is banking on electing one of these establishment candidates to continue the status quo.
Yeah, and to the point about how many people are watching, before we wrap up, we need to flag that, if 17,000 people are watching on Twitter, we need to talk about our volunteer links. This is possible because we have a volunteer army. It's not just that 2 million that have 2 million individual donations. We have the largest number of people contributing to house parties, et cetera, throughout this race, and we need that enthusiasm to continue. So as we said in our stream earlier, the deadline for Bernie Summer School is tomorrow. So please go and sign up there on the website. Don't forget to donate. And I also want to shout out, you mentioned that, the commodification of healthcare is such a huge problem here. Right. And it's not just giving the money to the healthcare industry. I also want to draw attention to this because it came early in the debate and I had almost forgotten about it, but Nomiki Kantz tweeted about it. Delaney says, I'm the only one on this stage who has experience in the healthcare business. Bernie Sanders says, it's not a business.
Right. That's some people would consider what he said a disqualification.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I just can't even.
It's amazing.
He made money off of
amazing.
healthcare.
And one other thing, if we can throw it, I don't know if we can. I put the tweet in the Slack thread, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, very early in the course of this debate, threw her hat in the conversation by tweeting, "Medicare-for-All is single-payer healthcare. That's it. That's the policy." So I hope that puts the kibosh on all of this tiptoeing around. We'll see tomorrow night. Kamala Harris has her new policy. Joe Biden and all of these people who have very strong departures from Medicare for All. In the last round of debates, people were raising their hand, committing to all kinds of things that they, hands were firmly fixed by their sides tonight about. So I just want to be really clear, from a real standard bearer for progressivism in the party, who is being courted by everyone on that stage, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there's no compromising on what it means to have Medicare for All. It is single-payer health care. That's it.
And if you want more details, another progressive congresswoman who was out there early today, right before the debate started, Congresswoman Jayapal, who, by the way, is the author of the House Medicare for All bill that has 117 co-sponsors.
Which is half the caucus.
I mean, she knows what the hell she's talking about.
Yeah.
She went on a nice thread today where she just laid out, this is what Medicare for All really means. And one of the big points that she was making is something that I think everyone watching this live stream tonight needs to keep in mind for tomorrow night, because there's 2 nights of this debate. And tomorrow night you're going to hear from 2 people on stage, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and they're going to talk about Medicare for All in a way that is completely dishonest and doesn't get to the heart of the matter, which is making healthcare a right.
And let's be clear, in previewing that debate tomorrow night, neither Joe Biden nor Senator Harris support Medicare for All.
Correct.
Let's be very clear about that, right? One of them is outwardly hostile. Yeah. The other one put out a political document earlier today, yesterday, right, talking about how, we're going to do all the great things that Bernie wants to do in Medicare for All, but we're not going to have to pay for it. We're still going to be able to coddle private insurance corporations, right, and everything will be great. That's not a real plan. So I think it's important that Medicare for All is on the stage tomorrow night, because the 2 leading candidates on the stage tomorrow night do not support it.
Yeah. And for the person who's mad about all of the Apple products on the computer, I would like to point out that these are our personal computers.
If you comment, we will react. That's what we learned. Yeah.
That's called narrow casting.
That is. All right. So, I mean, we had a great night. Bernie
really
won.
did.
We saw the real Bernie.
We really did.
I think the movement had a great night tonight, right?
Yes.
It's true.
I think Bernie really spoke for a lot of the people. He started the debate talking about the number of people who tonight were underinsured and uninsured, the number of people who are living paycheck to paycheck, the number of people who are stuck in poverty. I think for all them, and I think for the movement around Bernie Sanders, we all had a great night.
Yeah. And that movement is made up of people who donate $3, donate $7. Right now, the average donation on the sticker is $8. You can match that. I mean, it's made up of people who make $19. That's the actual average. That movement had a great night. Ooh, look at that mug. Look at that nice merch. This movement's made up of people like this. And when Bernie wins a debate, donate. You got the message. You distracted me. Have a great night. Is there anything else? Any parting ideas that we want to spread here?
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah, it is time.
In the words of the great Bernie Sanders, you're wrong, Delaney.
You're wrong. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a great night. We really saw Bernie dominate the stage here. Donate what you can. Have your friends volunteer. Let everyone know why you support Bernie Sanders. And if they need a better idea, have them watch this debate.
It was you.
It was huge. Have a good night.
Woo!